after watching the video of me delivering that line, I realized that wasn't good. I was going to film a different video today. I was going to film sort of like a check-in, a touching base after reaching 3,000 subscribers here on YouTube, which is really cool, but we'll get to that another time. Today, I just got really inspired by Sarah Hawkinson's YouTube channel and a recent video she put out. The theme of her video was about all the dreams she gave up on because she's just average. And examples of that were like the moment she realized she's actually not that pretty, or the moment she realized she's actually not that smart, or the moment she realized she's really like not a great writer. Oh yeah, and another was when she finally like came to terms with the fact that she's not emotionally strong enough to be a counselor. Anyway, I really liked that video and I really wanted to do my own kind of version of it, and that's because I really enjoyed hers, and just hearing I guess the vulnerability and like the honesty and the side of ourselves that a lot of us don't ever put out there. And the video made me think that most of us probably do have these moments in our lives. And it's something that I think about a lot. Like, I haven't found myself to be exceptionally talented at anything. I've basically just been chilling over here in average land, like my whole life. So when I was in fifth grade, we went to Washington, D.C., as a lot of us do. And I remember there was a fountain where you threw a coin in and you could make a wish. And I threw a coin in and I made a wish in that fountain. I want to be a writer and an illustrator. And I had a lot of faith in that wish because, obviously, because I still remember it today, which is 21 years later. College made me realize that I'm not a great writer. I thought I was really good at like grammar and punctuation and sentence structure and just all of that. I just thought I was better than everybody else. So I decided to get an English degree, just to prove it. And I thought I could become like a writer or an editor or in some sort of communications, because my skills were very important and far surpassed the average person's skills. But when I got to college and began to interact with and be in classes with people who were going into other fields of study, I started to realize that a lot of them were good at writing. A lot of them just already knew grammar and punctuation and writing sentences, and they decided to use that and pursue some other field of study. I noticed that a lot of people were very eloquent and articulate with the written word, and they wouldn't need my help out there in the real world one day. These people already had the same skill that I had. So here I was getting this degree in English after realizing I had basically the same skill level as everybody else who wasn't majoring in English. And then they had this skill and they were putting a concentration on top of it. And I had this skill and I was just saying like, I can write sentences, y'all. Anyway, so my hopeful plan was journalism. And that was my minor, mass communication. And college made me realize that I am not cut out for journalism. I hate journalism, in fact. It is not a good fit for my personality. I was thinking, well, maybe I can write for a newspaper or something like that, print journalism. So I went to my senior year, I went to a job fair with a lot of my other classmates, and it was for various newspapers throughout the state. And at that job fair, that's when I realized I hate this. I can't do this. Journalism overall it's very confrontational, very cutthroat. Like, you have to be socially assertive or even socially aggressive, and that is not me. And at that time, I feel like being an introvert, or being maybe a highly sensitive person, like those people didn't really have a voice or a presence, and And I just thought like, well, if that's how I am, well, I have to get over it. But I realized I couldn't, and I hated journalism. Initially, I had thought journalism as in I could write for Metal Maniacs or some other great metal magazine. And of course, then the recession hit and most of them ceased to exist. But it also, getting older, made me realize that I don't know much about music. Upon growing into an adult, I realized I still didn't know enough about music to become a music journalist. In high school, I was like, well, I don't know all like the technical terms and I don't know like the ins and outs of music, but that's just because I'm young. But when I get older and I become more mature, I'll absorb that language. I'll like gain that perception. No, it didn't come. And it's also partly because I'm not a musician. So I know nothing about the technical terms, the technical language surrounding music, and I feel like that's a big part of metal music journalism. And the simple passage of time didn't cause that knowledge to grow upon me. So between the recession and just my general like lack of familiarity with music theory, I came to realize that I'm an average music listener, not a potential journalist. It took watching my performance in a play on video to realize I'm not a good actor. When I was younger, I used to dream of being on stage or being in front of the camera, I guess as a lot of us do. And my church was having like a play. I was very young, I was like 8. My church was going to have a play and they were having auditions and everything, and I just fantasized about I was going to be the lead in this play. I remember her name was Sunny. I was like, I just want to get the part of Sunny. And I totally can. Well, I didn't get the part, but I did get a line. And after watching the video of me delivering that line, I realized that wasn't good. And also, when I tried out, I realized I was terrified. And that's probably why it wasn't good. But I realized I was terrified, and I didn't even know I was going to be terrified. Do you know what I mean? But I always liked the idea of acting, and even when I got older, I was in a few acting classes and everything, and it took an exercise in one of those acting classes for me to realize maybe I can never do this. And the exercise was you and another person, this was improv, okay? You and another person had to stand up in front of everybody else and like have a gibberish conversation, kind of like The Sims, where like one person would be going, rah, 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 and then you would have to reply to them in your own form of gibberish and simulate a conversation. And I remember going, doopy do. It was mortifying. And situations like that made me realize, like, I guess I can't act because, I'm average. However, side note, I think I'd be a pretty good actor now. So if you are interested in casting me, please hit me up. It took the end of gifted class and the entering of high school for me to realize that I'm not that smart. Gifted class. Okay, sometimes I've thought about making an entire video on this subject, but they put you in this gifted class from a very young age, but they don't tell you why or what it's for or how you got into it. And you think you're in it because you're smarter than everybody else, but then you get spat out into high school where there's no more gifted class, and you think, oh, well, I'm smart, so I'm going to take these AP classes, and then you don't do so great in the AP classes. Then you're like, well, what was gifted about? Because I'm not smart. I'm not smarter than everybody else. So yeah, I guess you could say it took AP classes for me to realize, like, oh, I'm not one of the smart kids. YouTube has helped me realize that I'm not going to get noticed because I have like a unique personality. It also helped me realize I'm not really an eloquent speaker. I'm generally like going off of a script. There's a lot of there's a lot of awkward pauses, there are a lot of mess ups. And I really have to think about what I say before I can convey it to you. See, I'm doing it. Before I can convey it to you in a cohesive way. And, I'm not saying I ever dreamt of getting YouTube famous or like thought that would ever happen. But I think anyone who has a YouTube channel like thinks in their head like, wouldn't it be so great if this could be my job? I wonder what it would take, you know. And a lot of people do rise to fame based on their interesting personality. But I wouldn't say I have one of those. Y'all, I realized I wasn't a real gamer when I had an interview for a job at Gamestop. This was about 7 years ago. So I was 24 or something. In this interview, I interviewed with like not the store manager, but like whatever's above that. So like a district manager. So I had an interview with that guy, and he said something like, what makes you good for this job or whatever? And I said, 'cause I'm a huge gamer. And then he basically asked me like, how so? And I realized I really had nothing to say for myself besides I like Final Fantasy. I am not a huge gamer. I'm not even an average gamer. I play about 2 to 3 games per year. And that kind of took me down a peg. And then I actually still got hired now. And I realized I was not a real gamer even more when I shadowed somebody for 4 hours and realized I can't do this. And I walked out and I never went back. Family Guy made me realize that I'm just an average girl, and everything that I use to identify myself with is just art that's created by someone else. If you strip away my metalhead, anime, video game, movie loving identity, you're just left with some normal girl. I just pile all this art on myself that I didn't make and then say that that's who I am. Like, my identity is totally based on things that I like that other people made. And I always kind of like differentiated myself, like, I'm different, I'm unique, like, but am I really? Okay, so those are just a few of the dreams and beliefs of my life that have fallen apart due to my averageness. This is a super fun conversation for me. It's a fun and interesting topic. There's a lot to unpack. I really could continue to explore this for a long time, and I'm not trying to like have a pity party or like blame anyone or anything else for anything that I gave up on or for my averageness in general. I don't really find this negative. I'm not really considering this negativity. I think it's just kind of like facing some realities. And I always have fun in kind of exploring things that could have been, not in a regretful way, but in just like an introspective way. And I've enjoyed trying to kind of deconstruct and get to the bottom of like how I was influenced or inspired to stop something or to change how I thought of myself in some way due to me being average. And for a lot of my life, I don't even know if I really even had dreams. Like, I was more just like living day by day, living in the moment. It wasn't like projecting into the future. Like, I wasn't putting a lot of stake in the future, just more like kind of caught up in daily life and like little things. And maybe there's nothing wrong with not having dreams as long as you're happy. If you like this topic of abandoned dreams, let me know and I might make another video. I had to trim down a lot of ideas and thoughts that I had on this for the sake of time and also for the sake of sticking to that topic of averageness being the reason. But I will leave you with something kind of positive. So the other day, I was thinking about Jeepers Creepers 3. It was terrible. And I was just thinking about like, how did they let this happen? How did someone write this and how did they make this entire movie and put it out there? Like, how did this happen? And it's like, I feel like that with a lot of media that comes out. I'm like, I could do better than that. And then I'm like, well, that should be inspiring. Like, maybe I should go out there and do better than that. But then I think about like the greats. I think about like the most iconic filmmakers and authors and all that stuff. I think about them and I'm like, Is there even any point? Like, I could never be their caliber. But then this thought came to my head that everybody has their own story to tell. So even the person who wrote Jeepers Creepers 3, and even the person who wrote Titanic, I don't know, what's the most iconic movie ever? I don't know. They both had their own story to tell. And so from the worst movie ever to the best movie ever, and everywhere in between, that's each creator's unique story and unique voice made with a combination of who they are, the life they've lived, and the resources they have available to them, and the perspective that they have. And none of it is a waste. And everybody has their own unique story to tell. So even if you are average, you're still unique. And it's still worth doing the thing you want to do. There, how about that? All right. That's it for today. Stay average.